Hello fellow makeup lovers, how are you guys doing today? I am pretty excited for this video because we're going to be talking about all of the palettes that I bought in 2020 so far, and I'm going to be ranking them. This is such a heavy stack of palettes. My arm literally almost broke off trying to do the thumbnail. We've got just a few palettes to discuss today. So before we jump into ranking all these palettes, I just want to say welcome back to my channel, or welcome for the first time if you are new here. My name is Amy. I love indie makeup. A ton of these palettes we have discussed today are from small, independently owned brands, which is super fun. So if you enjoy that type of content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And now let's go ahead and jump right on in. Before we get to ranking, I just have to tell you, I have a confession. I lost a palette. I literally lost a palette. I can't include it in the ranking today because I don't even know where it is. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Sigma Corda Rosa, wherever you are in this room. I'm so sorry for losing you, but we still have a lot of palettes to talk about. So I also want to say that I did only decide to do palettes that I personally purchased myself. I didn't include anything that I received in PR. So I have 16 palettes here. Technically I have 17. I have the Vintage Rose from Give Me Glow Cosmetics, and it is beautiful, but I haven't even used it on my eyes yet, so I probably shouldn't include it in the ranking. So starting off, number 16, the lowest ranked palette of all the ones I've bought so far this year, would definitely have to be the Clarity Cosmetics Blue Royal palette. I did a really pretty look with this, but I was overall pretty unimpressed with the quality, and I just feel like this palette could have been so good, but it just missed the mark by a little smidge on every single shade, basically. So here's what it looks like, and it's a really pretty blue color story. You'll notice these two shades right here are very similar, and that's because there was just a tiny little bit of overspray in this one of like gold flecks. Some were lighter gold, some were deeper gold. And I realized that without the flecks, these two shades are the exact same color. And I was really disappointed by that because like the overspray, you will use it in a few uses. So for there to be 6 shades in the palette and to have 2 that are basically the exact same, definitely disappointed by that. And then this shade right here is actually one of those mattes that has like tiny micro glitters in it. And I hate that. I know people like to use the excuse or the justification that it helps matte shades blend better, but I feel like we're at a point where there are so many amazing, beautiful, blendable mattes that don't need, did I just say blendable? Blendable mattes that don't need sparkles in them, so I refuse to accept that justification any longer. And then these two matte shades here are really nice and pigmented, but they're also the most kickback I've ever had, like a crazy amount. For me, it was definitely just like an instant regret after the first time that I used it, so that's why it's ranked at the bottom. Okay, coming in at number 15 would be the Morphe 35i Icy Fantasy. The packaging on this is absolutely beautiful. I wish it was artwork that I could, oh gosh, that I could like hang up or something. I literally can't open anything for the life of me. So here's what it looks like, and it is a pastel palette. I was drawn to this just because I thought, ooh, pastels, it's kind of an affordable price. It's so many options. But I feel like this is one of those moments where you get what you pay for, because some of these mattes are just super chalky, not that pigmented. There's some more interesting textured shimmers here, which have more of a creamy feel to them that are pretty. But overall, I just feel like I never reach for this palette, and there's just so many other pastels I would rather use, brands I would rather support. I'm kind of on a break from Morphe right now, so it's been a while since I bought this, but yeah, that's number 15. All right, y'all. Number 14, please don't roast me because I feel some sense of regret. This is the Natasha Nona Lila palette, and I got this on sale. I was like obsessing over it. I don't know what was going through my mind, but sometimes you're just like, oh, I want to make a purchase, and you like obsess over something that's on sale, and it's like, I need it, like, how can I go with my life without it? And you're like, you convince yourself that you would use it all the time, but then you get it and it's just like, oh yeah, it's another eyeshadow palette. And I actually had someone comment that too. They were like, it's just going to be another palette. And I was like, no, it's not. Like, I was so sure. So I kind of regret this as well, just because it is so expensive. It's like, why would you pay so much money for a palette that you don't absolutely love? Here's what it looks like, and it's really pretty. I really like the mattes in here. There's 4 different mattes. There's some cool tone and some warm tone options, and then the shimmers are pretty. But I just feel like there's so many amazing shimmers that I already have in my collection that it's just, I don't know. I just feel like they're not that special. Like, for example, this duochrome shade here, I have like 8 million duochromes that are better than that cost less, that I already owned before I bought this. So even though I like all the looks I've done with this, I just don't feel like it's like my perfect palette or like I needed to own it. Okay, number 13. I know. Here we go again. Why do I do this to myself? This is the Natasha Denona Love palette. Again, another palette that I kind of didn't buy it right away, and I was obsessing over it. I saw a bunch of reviews. Luckily, I was able to get it on sale. I've literally bought every single Natasha Denona palette I've ever bought on sale, so I didn't pay full price, but here's what it looks like. It's pretty. It's nice, but again, it's just not a palette that I'm like absolutely in love with. And from all the things I have from Natasha Denona, I'm just like, oh, it's okay. Like, it has some pretty mattes. It has some shades that are more difficult to blend. Like, this shade Dream was not a dream. It was a nightmare, in fact. Like, I just felt like it was so hard to use. And I don't know, there's some really nice shades in here as well, but overall, again, when you're paying so much for an eyeshadow palette, it's like, do you want to be left feeling meh about it, or do you want to like be absolutely over the moon in love with the palette that you bought? So I like it. It has some pretty shades, but I'm just not super drawn to it. And I felt like even when I did looks with it, like they turned out nice, but I wasn't like feeling myself in the looks. So I don't know if it's just like the pinky red tones with the cool tones or what, but yeah, was that number 13? I already lost count. Okay, so next in 12th place is the Violet Voss Sweet Violet palette. I bought this on a whim because it was just so cute and so tiny and super affordable, and I'm like, it's an $18 little affordable purple palette, and I was just super drawn to this. But overall, I feel like it's just okay. It's not my favorite palette from Violet Voss. I wish there was more depth here with the matte shades, and I wish that there had been a lighter shimmer shade, because I feel like all of these shimmers are kind of mid-tone. That one's a little bit deeper, but on the eyes, I feel like they kind of all give off the same vibes. Okay, so coming into 11th place is the Dandelions Co. Breath of Spring palette, I believe was the name. I was super drawn to buy this because I thought it was so cute that they took such basic packaging and found a way to make it their own and make it cute. And I saw a lot of people saying they couldn't store this, but what I personally do in my drawer of palettes is I just make sure that this is on top. I don't put anything else on top of it, and it's not really a big deal. It's really pretty. It's kind of like a rainbow palette with a little bit of pastel in it. And the thing with this palette is that I just feel like for my personal taste, it's not exactly like my, what I look for in a palette, because I felt like the mattes were a little bit more buildable, very beginner friendly, I would say. And then the shimmers were all very just like soft, kind of satin shimmers. And I'm one of those people who's like, I want all the pigment in my mattes. I want my metallic shades to be blinding with sparkles, and just, I want to go all out with my looks, even though, I mean, I guess I'm not really going all out today. But overall, I just really feel like this is not my personal preference, but it's so beautiful. The owner of Dandelions Co. seems so nice, so I did want to try it out and support it. And I'm not saying I would never buy anything again. I'd probably be more into trying the mattes than more shimmers, but there is one shade I kind of want to try. That's on my wish list from them. But anyways, yes, that's number 11. Okay, so number 10 would be the Elysian palette from Copacetic Cosmetics and Basket Case Beauty. This was a collaboration between a small brand and a small influencer, and I was so excited about it. So here's what it looks like, and I do like this palette. The mattes are pretty pigmented, and there's a beautiful purple, a beautiful matte blue, like kind of deep navy. I really, really like that one. And then there's like this kind of more neutral shade. There's a green. I feel like the color story of this is so beautiful, but I don't know. I look at it and it's perfect in theory, but the reason I ranked it number 10 is because I just haven't really reached for it that much. So I don't know why, because I had a good experience with it. I felt like everything did what it was supposed to do, but I'm never just like drawn to reach back into it, which is a shame because like it's so beautiful. Like there's definitely so much more I could do with this. I'm not saying that it's a bad palette by any means. I'm just ranking it as how I feel right now. Maybe I'll revisit it, use it like 5 more times and be like, this is the best palette ever. Who knows? But just just right now I'm ranking it number 10. I don't know why I'm overthinking this so much. So number 9 is going to be the ColourPop It's My Pleasure palette. Here is what it looks like, and I do really like this palette. I really like this shade right here called Sleeper, and overall I like the looks that I've done with it. It's not my favorite palette ever, especially for one thing, it has one of those stupid matte shades that have glitter in them, and I hate that. Like I said, a lot of these shimmers in here are mid-tone or deeper, and for my personal taste in makeup, I just normally prefer lighter shimmers all over the lid. So I love this, but I don't really use it as a standalone palette. Maybe that's why I'm ranking it lower, because whenever I reach for this, I'm also reaching for something else majority of the time. So that is number 9. And then number 8, I have the Nabla Cosmetics Cutie palette, which is a really cute little palette. It's the shade Wild Berry. Here's what it looks like, and I do like this a lot. I think it pretty much is, again, kind of like my ideal color story. Everything blended really nice. It was my first time trying Nabla eyeshadows, and I like them, but again, the reason why it's ranked a little bit lower, there's nothing wrong with the palette, but I just haven't felt like that urge to reach back into this, and maybe it's because I bought too many palettes now that I'm looking at it, but I do think it's really pretty. But also at the same time, I don't know if it's my like everyday color story right now. I feel like I've been super into neutrals lately. I feel like I can tell like something about my moods. Like when I'm feeling anxious, I go more towards neutral shadows. And these last few months have just been like stress upon stress upon stress. That was actually either number 8 or I genuinely can't count. But number 7 is the Dominique Cosmetics Latte 2 palette, which I do really like this one. I feel like this is such a pretty neutral palette. Like I'm digging these colors so much. I feel like everything blends really nicely. And I love that there are some really pretty pops of color here as well. I love this shade Frappe. It's one of my favorites. So overall, I do really like this palette. I feel like the pops of color are definitely a bit more muted. And then I also don't really love having the shade Frothy because I feel like it's just a waste of space in a palette. Like we all have that shade. Overall, I've really enjoyed this. One of my favorite palettes from Dominique Cosmetics. I feel like I would probably still rank Lemonade number 1 and this would be number 2, but I do really enjoy this palette, and it was definitely one of those like, oh, I don't really buy neutral palettes that often, so I'll get this kind of moments, and I have really liked it as like a go-to neutral palette. And then number 6 would be the Nomad Cosmetics Harajuku palette, and this is an interesting palette. So here's what it looks like, and I feel like overall this isn't my perfect palette because like this entire middle row here is more like satiny matte shades. I don't necessarily love that formula, and I feel like all of the matte shades in the palette regardless are kind of more soft, but I felt like I couldn't rank it any like lower than number 6. I already forgot again. Why did I choose to do numbers? Wherever it's ranked at. I just love the bottom row so much. These multi-chrome, duochrome-esque shadows are beautiful. Some of the most stunning shades, seriously, like this is such a beautiful yellow to pink. This one has blue, green, almost like silver. There's like pink and blue and purple in this one. They are so beautiful. So I adore that row so much. It basically makes the palette for me. It's also super cute. All right, so number 5, finally some redemption for Natasha Denona, is the Natasha Denona Camel palette, and this is so cute. Again, I bought this on sale, the last Beautylish sale that they had. It was the gift card event, and it was also, I want to say, like 25 or 30% off or something like that. And this was a neutral palette I've been wanting for a really long time that I couldn't justify, but it is so beautiful and just rich camel colors. Like they are so stunning, and they really are more beautiful in person. I feel like it's hard to capture these on camera because they're not your typical warm tones or cool tones. They have this richness, this uniqueness to them, and they blend really nicely. There is this shade right here, which is more of like a satin, which I really like on the inner corner. It has a really nice brightening element to it. And then this shade right here is more of a like copper shimmery shade, which I don't really care about that shade all that much, if I'm being honest. It's not anything super unique to me. So mostly I bought this for the mattes, but I do really, really like it. I think the quality is phenomenal, and again, it's such a good neutral palette. I actually think I'm going to keep this out in front of me because I haven't remembered to reach for it as much, but every time I do use it, I love the look. So number 4 would be, I think this might have been the first palette I bought during the new year. This is the Morphe 18B palette, and this is honestly the best palette that Morphe has ever made, and it's kind of crazy because I hear nobody talking about this, but it is so good. Here's what it looks like. It is the grungy palette of my dreams. The mattes are incredibly pigmented, like a crazy amount of pigment. The shimmers are really beautiful. This shade right here is very, very similar to Lime Chrome from the Natasha Gold palette. It's not quite as intense. It's a little bit softer, but the shift is very, very similar. All the shades in here are stunning, like this shimmer shade, and you've got a really, really nice deep green. I just loved every look that I did with this. I thought it was just honestly the best grungy palette. It has a pop of yellow, which I feel like yellows and greens look so pretty together. I don't know. Like I said, I'm surprised. I feel like this palette deserves more hype. I did do a first impression, and then I did a review and 3 looks if you want to see more of my opinion on this. Unfortunately, I feel a little less passionately about it because of Morphe just being Morphe. But overall, like, if you're on a budget and you're looking to have some really nice grungy greens and just like this kind of color story, I mean, it's great quality at a great price. So I really like this. Okay, so next coming in at number 3 is going to be the ColourPop Lilac You A Lot palette. I absolutely love this palette. It is so hard to open. Here's what it looks like. I feel like this is just one of those palettes that's really like my aesthetic because I really like the tones of all the shades that are in here. There's some like lighter pastels that show up really, really well. Like this one is beautiful. There's some deeper purples, and then all the shimmers are kind of more mid-tone to light shades, but they're duochrome. So there's a purpley blue, there's a purple silver, and a purple gray, and then they're like a purple gold. They are all so pretty. I don't super love ColourPop shimmer formula. It's a little bit more loose. I definitely prefer to use it with a glitter glue or to spray my brush, do a little something to, you know, just to spoof it up, spiff it up a little bit. But the mattes here, I was genuinely so impressed with how amazing they blend. Like, they were so easy to use, and for me, I feel like ColourPop can be a little bit hit and miss, but for me, this was definitely a hit. There's also one of those shades in here that has like micro sparkles in it. It's the shade Imagine That, but it's almost non-existent. You can barely even tell at all, so I don't mind it as much in this one, but I really, really love this palette. It was probably the most surprising one to me because I got it and it was just for a video. Like, I was like, I'm doing a purple palette battle. This is an affordable purple palette. I should get it just to, you know, round out my video a little bit, but I fell in love with it. And then next, the palette that I have ranked number 2 is the Menagerie Cosmetics Pastel Pup palette. This is such a pretty palette. Here is what it looks like. It is basically all pastels, as the name suggests, but there is a white and a black, and honestly, I've said it before, but I could really do without this row. What I'm really here for is these 9 shades. It's not a perfect palette by any means. There's a lot of imperfections that I could go through and point out, but the reason why it's ranked so high is because I feel like the color story is pretty unique, and I basically have an entire matte rainbow here. I do a little extra things to make the shadows work. I have to use a white base or a tacky base. You know, there's like extra steps, but at the end of the day, every look that I do with this, I pretty much end up loving, and that's what really counts. And then my number 1 favorite palette purchase so far of 2020 is the Glamlite Cake palette. I absolutely love this palette. The packaging, I mean, it's bulky, it's a little bit extra. I can see why it would be off-putting to some people, but when you get to what's inside, it is just such a nice palette. So here's what it looks like. Again, I think I have a first impression, and then I have a review and 3 looks with this one in case you want to hear my opinion a little bit more. The thing that gets me with this is just the shimmers are so amazing. I feel like I'm on a broken record because every time I open this palette up or any glam light palette, I'm like, the shimmers are just so good. They're so creamy, dimensional. They just look beautiful on the eyes. And I have no words. I just love them so, so much. I like the mattes in here, and I think that they're very complementary to the shimmers, but what I'm here for is these shimmers. So this is the current winner halfway through 2020. I'm so curious if anything else will come along the next few months and outrank it, but as for right now, it is very secure in its spot. So that is everything for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it. I would love to know what your favorite palette purchase of 2020 has been, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.